Okay, welcome back. Hour number 2 on tap for you right now. We're going to spend this with George Ure. That's U-R-E. George and Cliff Hyde together have put together one of the most remarkable phenomena on the Internet I've ever seen. It's called halfpasthuman.com. We've talked about this many times. We don't get enough of an opportunity to talk to George, but he's there. Are you there?
No, I'm someplace else.
What is that noise?
Oh, that's me trying to get comfortable in my office.
Oh, is that a squeaking chair?
Listen. Oh, yeah.
I actually thought that was some kind of emphysema for a moment.
Oh.
And I was very worried about you being able to speak for an hour.
Oh, no, I can speak. Jeff, you wind me up, I can go for days, brother. No, actually, it's kind of interesting. I don't know why it is, but every chair in my office, I go out and buy these $300 chairs, right?
Yeah.
You'd think that for $300, somebody in the USA, China, Canada, Mexico, wherever they make chairs, could build one that doesn't start to squeak.
Well, they need to send you a little, with each chair should be a little 1-ounce spray bottle of WD-40.
Oh, I've put WD-40 on it. I've put Bug Shield on it. I've put, spray any kind of lubricant from the shop on it, because I live out on a farm. We got all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
You want some lithium spray-on grease? Got it. Got it. But none of it seems to work for more than about 10 minutes. I don't know if, why, but anyway.
It's probably all those RFID chips in there that are tracking you and listening to you.
Yeah. Or the fact that I just keep pushing back in my chair, staring at my monitors in amazement.
Amazement, yeah. That's the amazement screech your chair is making there.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It's just shocked.
Yeah, it is. Did you hear the last hour by any chance of Webster?
No, I didn't. I'm sorry, Jeff.
He did. Yeah, we're going to get into it tomorrow night with him in more detail. But the CDS, the credit default swaps, what they're really called, of course, are derivatives. But nobody will mention them by that name, be it on talk radio, in the mainstream talk, and in the hearings in Congress. They call them products and other things. It was quite amusing. All right, so
it's wild-eyed gambling paper is what it is.
Yeah. There are very few. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say the only guy on mainstream media that I have seen get it exactly right was Nobel-winning economist by the name of Joe Stiglitz.
Mm-hmm. Joseph Stiglitz, yeah.
Yeah. Stiglitz was on CNBC today, and he said, look, here's the deal. The Obama administration and the Bush administration before them could have said, nope, we're not going to bail out the crooks. We're going to let the crooks. The public only agreed to guarantee the return to the depositors, not to the wild-eyed trading desk guys. And Stiglitz is of the opinion that if the government had simply stepped up and said, we're just going to pay you guys to move these solid savings and checking accounts and also the credit card accounts to a clean bank that does not have all this crap and toxic waste. Mm-hmm. And if you guys go down, you know what? Tufsky, you know whatski.
Right.
And Stiglitz, I believe, is absolutely correct. That's what's making this into the second depression. You don't mind if I go off into my observations on this, do you?
Oh, that's what you're here for.
Well, okay. I just thought you might want to ask a question, or there was.
No. I just like to hear you talk. There are very few honest economic scholars around, and I consider you right at the top of my list. You're a man who has insights and observations of which are always more than worthy of our time. So please go ahead.
Well, okay. So I run this subscription service called Peoplenomics, where I really get into a little more depth than I do in the free daily reports at Urban Survival. And it occurred to me last weekend that what I should do is lay out, because a lot of people don't get it, the big picture. Now, here's the big picture. And by the way, the big picture is seen by at least one or two people back in Washington, D.C. The one that I know for sure sees it is Congressman Ron Paul, who, when he was asking Ben Bernanke last week, how bad does it have to get before you admit you were wrong?
True.
And Bernanke said, well, when the facts begin to show, and I'm going, holy smokes.
Please, give me a break.
Yeah, I mean, $9 trillion is not enough.
No.
And what is it, 14 to 16 trillion to bail out Europe? And the deal is there's no guarantee that even that's going to work.
It's not going to work. Can't work because of the derivatives. The CDS is going to kill it all. Has to. Can't happen.
Sure. Well, what really happened was back in if you look back at the 1930s event, and you see that the stock market in the 1930s peaked about the first week in September. The week ending September 3rd is what I use in my data series.
Right.
And if you count the days, I didn't actually count them all. I let Excel do it for me. But if you count the days from the all-time market high to the U.S. entry into World War II, which came about the 8th or 9th of December of 1941, right after the attack on Pearl Harbor and Hitler declaring war on America 4 days later. If you count that out, we have a span of about 4,479 days, or 12.27 years, to go from the all-time peak of the market in 2002, at least a harmonic of where in the last depression we got a world war going. Now, you heard from Cliff last night, my esteemed colleague who is the chief time monk. I'm kind of like the money monster. I go, yeah. I know the pole shift stuff is here. Yeah, I know we're going to get some sea level rise when the glaciers go sliding in. And yeah, I know we're out of food. And yeah, I know we're in the middle of the biggest die off since 65 million years ago.
That's right.
But let's overlook all of that. And Cliff's going, you want to overlook all of that? Yeah, come on, let's just go with the idea that all of that is somehow miraculously survivable. If we do, what we find is that about either April or June, someplace in that time frame, April or June of 2012, somebody's going to hit the button to start the war to finally end this second depression that we're presently in. But before we get there, unfortunately, we have to pay the price, and the price will be a Dow likely under 1,000, I figure, by the middle of 2010.
You know, it's fascinating because Richard Russell said, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago that there would be a crossing point between gold and the Dow.
Oh, yeah. And Cliff sees that in his data, too.
Wow.
You know, it's not really a matter of if it's going to come, it's a matter of when it's going to come.
Well, all right.
And what's really interesting is if you line up the NASDAQ composite, the trading symbol is IXIC, the NASDAQ composite, and you line up the NASDAQ composite for March of 2000 and multiply the Dow of September 1929 by, I forget what the number is, but so that you match them up, and then you look at the long-term performance. I have not run out the chi-square correlations and done all the fancy stuff, but I can tell you, if you go to urbansurvival.com and you scroll down to the first chart, you'll be able to see that there is an incredibly close, I mean scary close correlation between how the NASDAQ composite has behaved versus how the Dow 30 was behaving in the 1930s collapse. Now, we got the serious problem of, on that chart, I say that there was an Iraq war bubble and a housing bubble that artificially got us out of the first part of the crash. The first part of the crash, and the economics really make the argument, the first part of the crash was when 9/11 happened and the political forces in control of this country spun the attack on America, or however that was really played out. We spun that into the ramp up of a huge military conquest. The reason that may
and
have
a massive genocide.
Well, yeah, which continues, but
absolutely.
But you can't let people have their homeland if they're sitting on our oil, right?
Yeah, that's what they say.
Yeah. So okay, and you know that if you look at the reserves between Iraq and Iran, you're at what, close to 20% of world reserves.
Something like that. Iraq was said to have the world's third largest reserves behind Saudi Arabia and Russia. There are some who suggest, no, they have the second largest world reserves, but that's a pretty well kept secret. At any rate, we kicked their ass and took their gas, and as the old bumper sticker said.
And they provided us with economic stimulus to keep us at least going until, well, last fall.
Right, well, we're feeding off their corpse, as it were. Back in a flash with George Ewer of halfpasthuman.com. Okay, back with you and George Ewer. All right, George, go ahead. Great stuff so far.
Well, yeah, it's kind of interesting. Before the break, we got as far as mentioning that the depression of the 1930s, the onset, resulted in the installation of the Civilian Conservation Corps and the Works Progress Administration.
Right.
And those were very good for the country because they helped build a lot of infrastructure. Now, the country, when we went through 9/11 and we were on the backside of the internet bubble collapse, we didn't really decide to go into the infrastructure business because there was so much lobbying, and there's always lobbying in Washington on behalf of the defense industries. And so we have the war in Iraq was started on what everybody admits now was false pretenses. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
No, it was not false pretenses. It was